Good morning. It's been a little while. I'm actually going to spend a little bit of time today really giving probably, hopefully, the best help I could give anybody as a basis to start with at their home, in their business. And that's some financial education, some literacy. Now, again, I'm not the financial whiz, the expert. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not, what do you call a stockbroker. I'm not a banker. I'm not any of these. I'm just going to share with you some personal experience tips that have gotten me a long way, not only in my business, but in my personal life at home. Because, in short, we all need financial education, financial literacy, to prove a point. As the United States goes in general, we are probably the most financially illiterate country that I have been able to, research thus far, but there's a lot more research that needs to be done, but I would like to start helping people, feel less stressed, take some heat from some lessons I learned, growing up because, through my experiences, I didn't have, two parents necessarily or family members that were the most financially literate people. To start with, I'll just share a quick version of, my growing up, my life is, as I've told you before, my dad was former military, had retired from the Army, um, then went on to become a tugboat captain. But let me give you a little bit of history of his education. He's from Brunswick, Georgia, a very small town, very small area down in the south of Georgia. And there's not much there as far as economics are concerned. My dad did not even graduate high school. Didn't even graduate high school. Never went to college, never went back and got a GED. My mother, on the other hand, from New York, uptown, up north towards Watertown, getting close towards Canada, out in the country, or as my grandfather would call it, God's country. My mother was a very educated woman, went to Cortland College. Both of her parents were school teachers. My grandfather was an ex-World War II vet. Um, my mom then transferred down to William and Mary, which is a fantastic school here in Virginia, and got her master's degree. Again, but showing the two different sides of education, my mother was not the most financially literate person in the world either. And that is hard to say because those are my parents, but they did teach me a lot in what they did not know. Case in point, I have told you before, my father passed away when I was 13 years old. Well, at that time, my mother and father thought they had done a smart thing and they had a $500,000 life insurance policy. Well, it sounds big to a lot of you. You're going to be like shocked. Oh, that's a lot of money. But let's keep in mind, back then, my father was making more money than my mother because she's a school teacher. My father was bringing in $150,000 a year between the military retirement that he had, sometimes more than that, maybe a little bit more, but again, between the military um, paycheck and then also being a tugboat captain. My mom at the time, maybe $30,000, $40,000 a year. So again, a good income between the two of them, but $500,000 a year. Let me show you how that's wrong. My dad was making about $150,000 a year. Now, keep in mind, a life insurance policy is a security measure, in case something happens to, one parent, somebody passes, then the family can continue on as if the financial support was not ending. You know, Understanding that we live in a world where money kind of rules what we can or cannot do. So by nature, my mom had about 2.5 years worth of my dad's income to survive. That's crazy, isn't it? It drives me nuts to think that this was part of my parents' thought, but then again, they weren't the most financially educated people either. So, in my learning lessons from my parents, I made a lot of mistakes. I spent a lot of money. I got my first management job at 19 years old, and I started making great money. Got a nice salary, stock incentives, stuff like that, working for nice Best Buy. And, I'm a 19-year-old kid. First thing I go do is go buy a car, and then I go buy rims, and then I go buy clothes, and then I get credit cards. And I daggone went poor off of my nice salary before I ever had a chance to collect a single cent. Now, again, I'm an idiot. I'm trying to prevent anybody else from being an idiot. So let me give you a little, forward motion background. I didn't even realize in that moment that I was making a mistake. It took me a while to dig myself out of that hole and pay off those debts. Now, my credit was poor for a while. Things happen. And almost the second time in my life, it took it to until it kind of sunk in my head. So let me give you some ideas of what I learned, because obviously now I'm in a great spot. I virtually have no debt at home. I have my home that I owe money on, and I have a little bit on a car. And I have 5 credit cards, believe it or not, which don't really get use except for to use them and pay them off on every single month. But I'll get into that on another video. So let me give you the basis of starting to understand financial literacy. First, go to people that understand finance. Go to accountants, go to financial advisors, pick their brains, maybe look at getting one as far as services. Go online, read, about financial literacy, read about things like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, great book of, solid understanding of financial literacy. Dave Ramsey, also a great author of financial literacy. There's plenty of sources out there that you can go kind of pull from and get some good ideas from. But what I do understand from the basis of my understanding through my experiences and then a lot of research and reading over the years to get me to where I am now at such an early age, where I've far exceeded my parents at 33 years old. So again, I'm still really young. For those of you out there, and I'm not the most educated person in the world as far as a diploma sense. I graduated high school by the skin of my teeth. I've been more of a worker and learn on my own type of person for my entire life. But that's not to say that there isn't some other stuff in that background. So I'll kind of clue you in later. So for those of you who don't know me, you'll get a good kick out of it. But the best thing that you could start to do is, one, get a grip, start reading this stuff, set your brain. Your brain really has to be reset. You have to be retaught what financial literacy is. So start picking apart things, researching that, reading it, ask some people some questions. That's a good place to start. Then what you want to do is you want to start to formulate a budget at home. Scary thought, a budget. I know, stop the presses. You don't want a budget at home. Especially if you're really young right now, you think, it's the time that you should be going out, hanging out with friends, and how do I put it? You think what your friends are doing, what you've seen before is stuff that you should be doing. But let me tell you something. The earlier you get started, this is something I realized, the earlier you can really enjoy your life. And I really mean that. I've been working a long time. I just took my first vacation this year in 16 years. And that's a kind of a crazy thought. But, to get back to the budget part and how important this is, you can never get anywhere unless you know what you're spending, if you know what your habits are. And it's very hard without a budget, because a budget almost not only is a guideline, a foundation, but it's also a picture. So that when you look at yourself in the mirror and see what you're spending your money on, some of you might want to kick yourself in the rear end. If you go to your bank account and, you see all those little charges that you've been racking up on that debit card, and you realize that every time you go to the gas station, you're buying something extra and you're spending about $15. And every 3 days, you're spending about $15. Well, add it up. That's a lot of money you're wasting. Did you really need the stuff? Now, again, it goes back to the importance of budget. Now, what are some things you need to know about establishing a good budget? Well, one, get it into your head. Why are you doing a budget? This is a huge, 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 huge piece. Why? Why are you sitting down and writing out a budget? Well, obviously, you want to get somewhere in your financial life. So you want to sit down and you want to realize, what are my short-term and what are my long-term goals? Write it out. Because if you don't write it out and you're not looking at it, it's very hard to keep your mind on it. Now, make sure that it's something that, really, for you is passionate, something that you really want to achieve, because then the stronger that goal is, the more likely you are to stick to it. Second of all, what I've learned, sit down and analyze all your spending. Use your bank account, use receipts, sit down and look at what you're spending on utilities, your housing, your car. Realize most importantly, how much are you actually taking home in your paycheck? One of the biggest mistakes I see is when I ask people how much money they make, they'll give me the amount that is before taxes come out, before FICA comes out, before their insurance comes out, before anything comes out. They're giving me that nice glossy figure that their boss told them. 48 grand a year, 50 grand a year, 38 grand a year, 100 grand a year. And then they're just as broke as the next person because they're not even understanding how much they're actually bringing home. Now, you got to understand what you actually bring home is very important because this is how much money you actually have to spend. Now, again, you don't want to spend everything. The marquee point here is you want to approximately try to keep everything underneath. At the very beginning of you establishing your financial life, you want to get a good basis to where you're safe and you can save money. You have money for an emergency fund. You can start to build. The basis of a budget is not only to have the goals, get you some financial literacy and give you a picture of what you're doing, but to also help you move along wherever you are in your financial life. If you're massively in debt, get you out of debt. It's a starting point. See, this is all this is. It's a starting point. So from there, what you want to do is you want to sit down and you'll also want to write out which ones of these are debts that you can start making a plan and attacking each debt so that you can get out of debt. Debt is something that nobody needs, whether it's credit cards, cars, clothing, Macy's, it doesn't matter. Debt is bad in the course of you creating a good, solid financial life and not stressing yourself out. So sit down, make the budget, know your why, know your goals, short-term and long-term, and then start planning on how you're going to attack it to get there. Start making some changes in your spending. Start saving more money and start paying off more debt to really, really, really start seeing forward progress. Do you want to buy a house? Everybody should, because not only do you get nice tax and incentives for actually paying yourself over the long term of this, but it's something you own. You don't own, a rental. You don't own it. You want to own it. That's our nature, to own it. So do you want to buy a car? Do you want to take vacations? Do you want to retire early? These are all things that a budget will help you establish. So take in mind, this is a small piece. I'm going to have to do multiple videos on this to get everybody to understand what's, some things to look out for in budgeting. What are some things that you want to establish if you're trying to get out of debt? Now, this is the starting point. Sitting down and starting to establish what is your budget, what are you spending, where are the holes and gaps, and then where are you strategically going to have to move. If you need help, go seek a financial advisor. Go seek out an accountant. Go read, research. There's plenty of stuff out there for you. PDFs on the internet that will help you start a budget. Dave Ramsey courses. There's unbelievable material out there. So hopefully this will help get you started. Again, if you have questions, comment down below. I will gladly kind of give you some insight, some things that I know, things that I've experienced as I've done here. But then I'll also kind of continue on these videos because, again, my goal with every single one of these videos is to, open up the brain, help us become more successful in more ways than just monetarily. But whether it's through real estate, which is my career path, and, what I do as a business, multiple phases of different businesses. Actually, not that you say that. It's kind of funny that I'm 33 and I do other things in real estate than just sell real estate. Anyways, sorry, lost track. But anyways, please comment down below. I would love to help you out. And then I'm going to continue on doing some videos that hopefully will help everybody establish something. And I'll leave you with this marker why this video is so important. I read an article on GoBankRates.com, and it was done with a study that 62% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. That is a scary thought to me because I think everybody should have a reserve account, an emergency account, things that I've learned from Dave Ramsey and others that, give me solid financial clearance and allow me to kind of work through my day with less stress because I'm not worried about if something happens. So I want you to not worry as well. So that hence why I wanted to do this video and then a series of videos afterwards to kind of help you break it down. So I hope you enjoyed the start of what's going to be a series of videos. again, comment below, like it, share it, get this out, because I think everybody needs to start, getting a grip on their financial future, and then they'll start to be a little bit happier and enjoy their lives a little bit more. So thank you very much again for tuning in. Talk to you soon.